Good morning, everybody. Happy solstice. I'm so excited to be here with you as the sun is rising and starting its ascent back towards the north. I wanted to offer this collective dream reading. It's been a really long time since I was here. I've been in my own cave of transformation. So I'm very excited to be reconnecting with a lot of you. I'm Sophia Sunshine, for those of you who don't know me, and I am the host of the Neurovisionary podcast, which you can find on YouTube. And you'll be seeing more information from me coming forward about dreams and unmasking, especially in relation to neurodiversity. As we are expanding our consciousness right now, we're finding a huge expansion in understanding that humanity has all different beautiful varieties of their neurology. And in that, there's a lot of gifts, and then there's also struggles. And so, how do we support everybody moving forward and give space to discovering what those gifts are and also creating new modalities of support? I come to you working with dreams from the last 2 years of my study, completing my master's degree in transpersonal psychology, unmasking as a late diagnosed autistic person, as well as someone with ADHD, which I did not find out until I was 46, 47. And that puts a really big reframe on a person's life. And even if that's not your situation, I've always shared with my students, also a way of trying to live my own life is to continue to be curious about my experience. So I encourage you to do that. Compassionate and curious. Those two things are ideal guides in life for self-discovery and living an authentic life. And Jung, who I studied during the last couple years and continue to be steeped in his work, really felt that the world depended on authenticity and individuality, which is why individuation was at the heart of his whole life of working with people. And dreams were at the center of that. And so I'm going to share with you a little bit about that because that's at the base of what I'm offering now. So dreams offer us access to our unconscious world, right? So we don't have any control. It's one of the only times where we really have no control of what we dream. So that means there's another part of us, our unconscious, that is creating these dreams, is speaking. And in that speaking, there is a language that is very particular to you. And as we spend time with our dreams, which is what I found, is that this is by far one of the most powerful places of access to the true self and to understanding what is lying within the unconscious, so that when we bring it into consciousness, we can start to live our lives from an entirely new, more in alignment way. And when we start taking actions in relationship to our dreams, we also discover these synchronistic events from our waking life mirroring back to us that we are actually on the right path. So I want to encourage you, if you don't have a dream journal, consider getting one for 2026. And if you want to follow along with me, I have an introduction to working with dreams, as well as how to have better sleep, because sleep is this very important nutrient for us and for our vitality. And so I'm not going to go into that a lot more now, but where I want to start with is that this idea of individuation and how intrinsic it is to our greater world consciousness, greater health of our planet and of our communities. And the reason for that is that, as Jung found, even though science was arguing for the collective, arguing for the number and that everyone should somehow blend in and there's this one solution, what he found is that it was the opposite. Because when you look at childhood development, you look at what they now know about neurological development and the development of the self, is that from the very early years of being a baby, it is the process of being with oneself and being with the mother and going back and forth which changes the state of the nervous system. So the baby doesn't know, right? You didn't know that you were your own self when you were born. You related to the feelings of safety, hopefully, that you had when you were with your mother. And that's being in union. That's co-regulating. That's relationship. But when you were separated, a lot of times then that's when the distress would come, and that's when the feelings of anxiety would come, and the nervous system would have, it's almost like the pearl being rubbed in the shell, like an irritation. And what they found is that experience is actually what enables the self to develop, is through that nervous system being activated. But through the process of returning to safety, then there's this process of coming to a realization that, oh, I am my own person and I am safe. Either way, right? Developing self-reliance, confidence, etc. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't always work out that well. And we have a lot of trauma, we have a lot of hypersensitivity. Again, a whole nother subject. But what I want to get at is that Jung found that because the person's individual experiences were what determined their perspective of the world and actually made it possible to perceive the world, right? We hear about how our thoughts create our reality. So if every person individuates and knows their authentic self and is true to themselves and accountable to themselves, then that's going to create a whole different type of world, right? So he felt that the individual was intrinsic to a healthy world. And he wrote about this in The Undiscovered Man, which he wrote after World War II, where we saw that it's not so great when someone takes over our thoughts. So enough of that little educational tidbit. I'm going to share with you now, and I invite you to bring out your journals because I have several prompts. And I've had several dreams over the last few days. And the first one, and I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and actually go through this imagery with me, because the image is where the power lies, within your own unconscious. And even though this is my dream, this is our collective dream. We share these things. This is part of the collective unconscious, which Jung also identified. So I'm in a large warehouse, which is a beautiful, big, open space. And there's a man talking to me. And I feel a separate part of me. I feel I am in my female body. And yet I'm very aware that I have a masculine side, but I'm not sure he sees it. So check in with yourself. Check in with your body. Check in with how you identify. And recognize that you have two parts within you. In Jungian, it would be animus and anima, but the feminine and the masculine. And there's something absolutely intrinsically valuable to those and what their relationship is like. So in this dream, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, okay, he sees me in this feminine. So I tell him, I have a very capable masculine, even though you see me in this female body. In this moment, I want you to write this question down. You can come back to it later, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds to a minute. How is the relationship between your inner masculine and your inner feminine? And that could be structure versus flow, surrender versus action, feeling versus thinking. So take a moment and just scribble down or draw. How is your relationship between your masculine and your feminine? You may also just close your eyes and see an image. See how you can bring them together, how they can support each other. Next, in this large creative space, on one end is a huge kiln. Many of you know me that I had that, but In this dream, there's a huge kiln, and that kiln has massive fire inside of it because it's designed to create things, big things, right? Big dreams. What is the state of your creativity, your passion? Are you feeling a spark for life? How are you inspired? Feel into where this fire lives in your body, because we are being beckoned by the sun right now to consider where we're going to be putting our energy, right? Our vitality. And a lot of us have been confronted with times that is not vital, like myself, which is why you haven't seen me. But now, is there an opportunity for that vitality to become enlivened again in your life? So write down for the next 30 seconds everything or anything that evokes a spark of life in you. And again, you may want to close your eyes and see what arises in the imaginal. Next, on a large set of shelves in this dream, not too far away from this big fiery kiln, on the shelves are these huge baskets. They are large enough to hold a person. That's how big they are. And in the dream, two women come and say, you need to move those baskets. They're too close to the fire. Now, we all know, or maybe not everybody knows this, but I know what it's like when the creative fire is, let's say, really roaring. And sometimes it's destructive, right? Sometimes it burns us to the ground. But we don't want to keep creating in that way in our lives, right? We don't want to create in order to destroy. Like, I think I'm very familiar with that. And sometimes we get so hooked into the creation destruction rhythm, right, in our lives that we don't know how to hold on to what we've created and to then give it life force and energy to sustain us. And we're in a place where nourishment and sustenance is absolutely crucial, right? We've been depleted as a culture over the last few years from everything, like our hearts, our bodies, our minds. And so what is going to feed us? Now, these baskets are notorious for harvesting, right? Harvesting the fruits of labor, harvesting the foods in fall. When I went to start moving these baskets, and mind you, I was grabbing these big baskets and running back and forth. And as I did, I looked down into one of these baskets, and it was like a white, gray, woven material. And I realized there was writing on the strands that were weaving the basket together. And so I couldn't see what they said. But somehow, what is it that we're weaving in our thoughts, in our prayers, in order to create a container? What are the prayers? What are the dreams that you have that you're conscious of or maybe unconscious of that these baskets are meant to hold? So I invite you to close your eyes and see these baskets, and they're going to be unique to you. How many of them there are is unique to you. And then when you're ready, draw these baskets on a page. Give yourself enough room inside that basket to also see what comes forward. And I'm going to invite you to ask each basket what it's actually for, what it is meant to hold, what prayers, what dreams you have that you may or may not know of that are going to carry you forward, that are going to sustain you are meant to go in these baskets. So take a moment. And again, you can come back to this and take time, more time if you want. So the next image came the next night. Now this dream was on a snowy, forested hill. And I drove up the hill and the road split. And each direction went only 100 feet. And that was very clear because it wasn't plowed, right? So life can only show us so much down the road. And one road went around this house, this beautiful house that I thought was actually like a new neighbor. I was curious, like, what are they doing in there? Who are they? Is it? And I could sense that it was like more than just a home. It was a hub. It was a place where people were connecting. I don't like the word business because I think we're here to do more than business, but maybe it was an organization. But there was wisdom. There was something going on in there, and I could sense it. People were starting to arrive, and I can feel there's going to be a feast inside this house. And so I have the two roads. One's going to head way up into the woods, and I don't know where it's going to go. And I'll go there later. There's no question, right? The woods are part of the underworld, the unconscious, the primitive, our connection with nature, and it is very directly related to the unconscious. So no worries, I'll be there. So I decide, all right. Oh, and there's a hummingbird just came to the window. So the hummingbird's saying hi. It's very exciting. Okay, so I go into this house. Oh, and mind you, it's like red, right? How often do we see a red house, especially in a dream? So it's red. So we have more passion. We have more, the house of passion, right? But passion is unique to each person. And house also represents an aspect of the self, like my body, my mind, my heart, that is my house. If I'm living in alignment with my soul, that is my house. And Jung had a dream where he had multiple layers of his house and felt that each layer is a different aspect of our consciousness. So I walk into this entryway and it's a dark room. It's all very dark wood, like being in the wood, in the tree. And I want to go into this dark passageway because I can feel there's a feast. People are coming to eat and nourish themselves and be together on the other side of the wall. And this woman stops me. She's very rigid. She's a guardian. She's a guardian of this portal. And she says, "You can't go in there." And I was like, "Oh, what's your name?" So I ask her, and she says, "Michaela." Michaela. Now, Michaela is connected to Michael. And in the Hebrew, it means who is like God. And in this sense, it is a rhetorical question. That's how Michaela is typically spoken. But when we look deeper, we find that Michaela actually means strength, divine connection, and individuality. Who is like God? Someone who is strong, who is divinely connected, and individual. So Michaela is guarding this door, right? And then in the dream, I walk back out and I was like, okay, and I see the entrance and there's 3 large women who are facing this other door. And over that door, it actually says the London Fog Society of all things. And that's very personal for me, but not. Because the fog has to do with, when you look at London and the history of the fog was something that was very toxic. And it just would swamp through London. And during the industrial time, lots of people died because it was from the industrial uptick of use of coal. But that fog is also the delusionment, how we are being sucked in by certain aspects of social conditioning. What is fogging our vision, right? But what's within the fog? What, if we move the fog aside, is available to us? And so I came back to this entry to tend this dream, and I'm going to share with you what these characters had to tell me. When I went back to see Michaela, I said, I want to go in there. And she said, you're not ready to go in there. And I said, why? And she said, because you can't go in there until you face yourself. And I thought, I've been facing myself a lot. But tell me more. She said, you can't go in there until you face yourself, which means until you open yourself to others. And I realized that through this journey of unmasking, I've had to be in a cave. And a lot of us have had to be in a protective space. But when we're facing ourselves, just as Jung talked about, individuation cannot happen out of relationship. It requires being in relationship because it requires facing yourself while facing another. Not taking on the other, but facing oneself in the presence of another. So I want you to think about how you're feeling about facing yourself in the face of others. In relationship to life, in relationship to the people in your life, are these people the kind of people that will allow you to face yourself? Will hold that space for you to face yourself? And or do you feel strong enough in facing yourself that it doesn't matter? That you are truly able to know yourself and be with yourself? And this is always a process. This is an evolving process for all of us. But as we move forward, we have actually, there is so much expansion happening. So this is our work so that we can continue to cultivate and raise the consciousness of people, of the planet, of our communities, of our value system, our authenticity. It is intrinsic. Because if you're in a relationship with someone who doesn't know themselves, tell me how that goes. Really? Does that work? Or do you spiral around projections and you don't actually get to know each other or yourself? Now, the second part, there were these three big women. And when I went to see them, I realized, oh, these feel like the fates. Now, the fates are the goddesses in the Greek pantheon that guide birth, life, and death. And they're like the weavers, right? So we're back to the baskets. We have these huge baskets and we have these huge women. And in that moment, I said, I want to go in there. And they all turned around and looked at me. And it was interesting. They were wearing these colorful plaid woven shawls over their shoulders. They were really beautiful, very unique, never seen anything like them. And they said, oh, do you? And the fates are famous for speaking in riddles. So I have to answer for myself. And I said, actually, it's more that I feel that I need to go in there. Oh, do you? Then go in there, they said. Like in my imagination, they were barring the door. I had to get permission or something. So check yourself on these things, right? What about life? Where do you feel you need to go? And where are your beliefs making you think you have to ask permission, right? Or that you're not good enough, or that you need to do something in order to be able to go there. And that's where dreams guide us. What dream do you have? Do you, for some reason, not think you're ready for, or that you shouldn't go, or that you need to ask permission? What dream is calling you? I'm being called to the London Fog Society, apparently, which is true. So I could feel my resistance to entering. Now, there was another character, the very tall man, and I had already felt that he was almost like a guardian, like he was just going to always be there. I had seen him somewhere else before, and I asked him, I was like, what is your name? His name was Jacob. Now I will go back and check out what that is about. And this is where I'm going to invite you to walk through the door with me. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to see this doorway in this house, in this red, vibrant house, in the snowy woods. And there's no paths any farther. You could leave, but snowy hill, woods, red Tudor house, dark wood entryway, and the door. And feel the presence of these three large goddesses with their beautiful woven shawls. And Jacob the guardian. And you're at the door. And notice in your body what you're feeling as you stand outside that door. And if you're feeling any resistance, you don't have to go in, but be curious about it. If that's like your biggest dream or if that's your fate, how are you feeling about walking through that door? So when you're ready, pass through the opening and see what's on the other side of that door. And then when you're ready, I invite the sun to rise before you, the massive, brilliant orb of light that is rising right now. See that orb of light and let it wash over you. Let it wash all the fears, all the resistance, all the inadequacies, the grief, whatever it is that keeps you from pursuing your biggest dreams. Let that light burn away all of those shadows and rest in that light. That's your light. That's your soul energy, your divine connection to your life. Thank you for being here. Blessing on your solstice and on your year ahead. I'm Sophia Sunshine. Aho.